This is the Fiat AUBL 74 HVG, also known as the Fiat Type 6616, and this is in fact the top ground vehicle prize for the currently running Operation Heat event in War Thunder. This is a Tier 5 premium vehicle on the Italian Ground Forces tree, currently at a battle rating of 8.0. Although, as you can in fact see, this is not a tank. This is in fact an armoured car with a top speed of 62 miles an hour, a crew of 3, and absolutely no armour whatsoever. This specific variant of the AUBL mounts a 60mm OTO HVG Cannon with the availability to use either APFSDS rounds or HE rounds. The HE round has a muzzle velocity of 1000 meters per second and contains 450 grams of explosive filler with 8mm of penetration. The APFSDS round, on the other hand, has a muzzle velocity of 1620 meters per second and a best effective pen of 249mm. Unlike the HE round, of which is free to use, the APFSDS will cost you 210 silver lions per round. Now, the AUBL can mount 6 smoke grenade launchers. Currently they all fire off at the same time, although it was previously said by a developer that they would fire off in pairs, so do keep in mind that this may change before the actual release of the vehicle at the end of the event. Other than that, the vehicle does also have access to crew replenishment and a scouting mechanic, and of course comes with all of the modifications unlocked due to the vehicle's premium status. So in the short period of time that I have had access to the AUBL, I have played it a fair amount. Started off a little bit rocky, but after a string of bad matches, I started to begin to get the hang of what makes this thing tick. Really, keeping on the move is key. Anything from high caliber guns to standard machine guns has the capability to kill you very easily due to that lack of armor. So staying fast can really help to stop the enemy getting a clean shot and increasing your chances of survival. Alternatively, you can find a good camping spot where it's unlikely that the enemy will see you, and then exploit that using it to hide, and then engage the enemy at the opportune moment. So with that said, let's get into some ground RB gameplay. I decided to show this first game due to how it demonstrated that camping position playstyle. Most of this game was actually me holding the B point, hiding in a small spot next to that point, and only really leaving that area to engage enemy vehicles directly or to capture the point back if they took it. Now, this was near the start of the game. I had just got to my camping spot near the B point, and I spotted 2 enemy tanks moving towards that zone, one of which I was actually able to knock the cannon breech out on, meaning that he would have to stop and repair the vehicle, of which he does right next to where I shot him, meaning I knew exactly where he was. I drove straight up, hit the turret, got some splash damage, then I hit the engine, meaning that he was on fire, he couldn't move, and also he would have to restart that repair, meaning that he wouldn't be able to shoot for even longer. Once I had done that, I went behind these buildings, used one of the gaps in the buildings to fire through, and knock out the remainder of his crew. So there we go, the first successful engagement of the game. Now moving on to the B point, which has been captured by the enemy by this pesky little T-55. Now, of course, the first shot goes into the back of the turret, knocks out the cannon breech, he cannot shoot, allowing me to drive up, pump another shot in, and get me a second kill. Once I had done that, obviously I'm now capping the B point, so I decided to go into this little walled off area just so I have some cover and really can't be seen by any other enemy vehicles. Once I capped the point though, I did then decide to move out, and then I got shot, and actually I was incredibly fortunate not to have been killed by that. The crew are very, very tightly bundled together within the turret, and you know, that shot went into the turret and only killed my gunner. So I was very lucky that I was not completely destroyed in that case. After that, I then head back to the B point after a short stint of running away from an invisible enemy, and find an AMX-30 Super, who I then shoot in the turret, knock out the crew, allowing me to go back and capture the B point for a second time. And in this second time, I of course then do use the crew replenishment feature on this vehicle to gain back the crew member that was lost in the previous bit where I was shot, which is very useful. Allows me to get back a bit of survivability, not that this vehicle has much, and really just use that to its fullest. After that, I then go back to the original camping spot I was positioned in, and I spot again an AMX-30 Super, who I shoot in the front of the turret, knock out the gun, knock out 2 of the crew members, and set him on fire. Luckily though, he does try running away, but I get him just before he escapes, giving me yet another kill. So now we're on 4 kills. It's going quite well. And, you know, we're coming up to the end of the game, my team has all the points captured, and I do spot an enemy vehicle going for the A point. It's an M6. Why is an M6 in this BR? Don't ask me. But I do off him with a single shot, knocking out the entire crew with a single round to the front of the chassis. Once that happened, I then see another enemy just behind some trees. It's an AMX-13 SS11, not out of the realm of possibility for him to be matched up with the AUBL, but, you know, it's a bit of an up tier for him. But anyway, that was the end of that game. That was actually the last game I did before this video. When I'm making videos on newer vehicles, I prefer to have the first game I show being the last one I played before the video, and having a decent score. So that's the best one we're going to have for this video, and generally it did well to demonstrate not only the camping play style that you can use with this vehicle, but also just running away when you're shot at, which tends to be the best way to survive. So our next game starts off with a direct confrontation with a warrior infantry fighting vehicle, a generally quite deadly opponent. All IFVs are when you're driving the AUBL, mainly because of their high rate of fire guns, of which will easily pen your armor and will just pump rounds into you very quickly until you're dead. And in this case, I did get hit. He damaged a part of my radiator, I believe, and, you know, I was able to get a shot into his turret and kill him before he got a second shot into me, which was incredibly fortunate. And after that, it was a while until I came across another enemy, though eventually I ended up at their spawn point. Not exactly an ideal place to be in the state of the game. There's a chieftain. I shoot him, it goes in, and it kills him. Really, I don't want to be at the enemy spawn. My team is currently losing, and we have less points than the enemy, so what's the point of sitting at the spawn? So what I decided to do is head back towards the B point. I did knock out the chieftain, and I'm perfectly aware that he might respawn, which could be dangerous, and actually he does in a chieftain marksman, which does get some shots on me, but luckily sparks and does minimal damage, allowing me to run away with not too much worry. I come across an M901 ITV, one shot to the back of the chassis, goes in, kills the crew, and I continue to drive in as fast as possible, keeping up that mobility, keeping the speed on, just to try and be a bit more tricky to be shot at. And boom, there we go, a T95E1 shot in the back of the chassis, goes in, knocks out the ammunition, and that goes boom boom, and that is bye bye M95. And it is all going perfectly well until an F-84 comes in and decides to blow me up. And to be honest, I don't know if that was a direct hit. The splash damage from those HVAR rockets will easily knock out this vehicle, even if it's not a direct hit, which is rather annoying. The lack of armor means that effectively anything in the game, be that 30 cals, 50 cals, cannons, splash damage from rockets, bombs, it'll knock out the vehicle, which is rather annoying, but it does mean that you need to keep on your feet and keep moving around rather than staying in one place. So for the final game of this video, I start off by using the 2 machine guns, both 7.62mm caliber, one on top of the roof and one coaxially mounted next to the gun, and of course I'm using them to kill a helicopter. Helicopters are a big threat. Again, they have rockets, and splash damage from those rockets, even if they don't directly hit, will damage or kill you in most cases. So if you see a heli and there's no other teammates firing at it, you want to try and deal with that ASAP. Once I was satisfied that the helis had been taken out, I decided to go and investigate the A point, of which was the only point captured by the enemy at this point, and they had actually been able to hold it for the whole length of the game so far. So, you know, I presume there's someone over there, and in fact there are a few enemy tanks on that side. Fire off a shot, and I miss. So what I then do is I reverse up, planning at least to hide my tank again, but then it looks like at least he's not looking at me, so I fire another shot, and I kill him, shot to the turret cheek. Turns out, he was actually looking directly at me and was probably going to fire just as I killed him. So, you know, a bit of luck for me there, knocking him out when I did. Moving on then, we capture the B point, which had just been taken by an enemy, and boom. Come across an enemy vehicle hiding near the point. I knock out his loader, he can still shoot. I have to outrun his gun so that he can't kill me, and luckily I reload just in the nick of time and kill the enemy yet again just as they were about to fire at me, making it another close kill there. Third and final kill on the ground of this game was on an enemy T-62 who had been sitting at the enemy spawn just behind this hill, in fact, sniping over towards the B point. Then an enemy BMP does spawn behind me and I make the decision just to sort of run away and avoid that engagement. Really, a BMP can be rather dangerous, especially the BMP2 with its auto cannon. After that, that's the end of the game, third in the team with 1 assist, 3 ground kills, 1 air kill and 3 base captures. So that is the end of the gameplay segment. Hopefully you did enjoy, hopefully it did well to demonstrate how to use the AUBL fairly well, keeping up your speed in some situations to make it a bit more tricky for the enemy to shoot you, or in other cases finding a good camping spot, using that to hide from the enemy, and then moving out when you feel it's best to engage. Of course, as mentioned, the vehicle does have some fairly significant cons, one of which is the armor. As I said, effectively anything will kill you. Another one that I didn't mention so much is the gun depression, -6 degrees of gun depression. On flat maps, not an issue whatsoever, although on some more hilly maps, such as Maginot Line, Fulda, that can be a fairly significant issue and might cause you to have to drive right on top of a hill to actually be able to shoot an enemy, which of course exposes you quite a bit, and then you've got the lack of armor, which means anyone can shoot and kill you. Although of course that's not to say that the vehicle has no positives. Of course, overall the mobility is fairly decent. You have a good top speed, whereas being a car will of course mean that your turning isn't quite as swift as some of the tracked vehicles that might have neutral steer. You do still have decent mobility in most situations. The gun is also fairly decent. You have an APFSDS round, and at an 8.0 BR being a small light vehicle, having that kind of ammunition is really a requirement to do well. When you do face heavier tanks such as the T10, that round will be able to go through them like paper and will really be very useful when you come across some of those heavier beasts. Of course, it's also a premium vehicle which will give you increased RP and Silver Lion gain, and especially if you're someone who's doing the event just to get a free premium that you may use to grind out the Italians, that's certainly a big positive for you. Whereas it may not be the most effective premium you can use to grind out the Italian tree, it is a free one at the end of the day, so you might as well take it. As for me, I'm going to be using mine to be a backup for my B1 Centuro, which I generally take out just for fun every so often, as that is actually still a very dominant vehicle at this BR. Still, I think that more or less sums it up for the AUBL 74 HVG. Do let me know what you think of the vehicle in the comments below, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. If you did enjoy the video, please consider dropping a like, maybe even subscribe to the channel. If you do, that would be massively appreciated. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.